The Colonial Parkway Murders are a series of unsolved murders that occurred in Virginia, United States, between 1986 and 1989. The case is considered one of the darkest mysteries in American forensic history. The victims were young couples vacationing or driving along the scenic Colonial Parkway, which connects the historic towns of Jamestown, Williamsburg, and Yorktown. Key facts and victims. In total, investigators officially link 4 double murders, or disappearances, although some experts believe there may have been more victims. October 1986, Kathy Thomas and Rebecca Dowski, found strangled in a car. September 1987, David Knobling and Robin Edwards, found shot to death on a riverbank. April 1988, Cassandra Haley and Keith Call, disappeared, car found empty, no bodies found. September 1989, Anita Hales and Daniel Lauer, found dead with stab wounds. The killer's pattern and case details. The investigation identified several strange patterns that continue to frighten today. Predilection for couples. The killer targeted young people, students or couples, in cars in secluded locations. No signs of a struggle. In several cases, it appeared as if the drivers had stopped the car for someone they trusted, such as a police officer. Strange details. In some cars, personal belongings and documents were neatly arranged on the dashboard, which is not typical of a spontaneous attack. Variation in methods. The killer used various methods, strangulation, firearms, and knives, which is not typically found in serial killers who stick to a style. Leading theories and suspects. 1. Fake cop. The leading theory is that the killer may have used fake flashing lights or a real uniform to lure the victims into stopping and letting their guard down. 2. Law enforcement officer. Because the crimes occurred on a federal highway under the jurisdiction of the National Park Service, there were rumors that the killer may have been an insider. 3. Multiple killers. It is believed that not all of these incidents are connected, and that different perpetrators may have operated on the parkway. Current status. Despite the fact that nearly 40 years have passed since the last murder, the case remains open. In 2024, news emerged that modern DNA analysis techniques had made progress in identifying suspects in individual cases, but the series had not yet been fully resolved. Important. Unlike the Zodiac killer, this killer left no letters, making his capture virtually impossible in the pre-digital era. Details of the 4 episodes. 1. Kathy Thomas and Rebecca Dowski, October 1986. This was the first double homicide to shock the state. Kathy, 27, a Naval Academy graduate, and Rebecca, 21, a College of William and Mary student, were a couple. Location. Their Honda Civic was found in a ditch on the York River embankment. Details. The bodies were inside the car. Their throats had been slashed so deeply that they were nearly decapitated. Diesel fuel had been poured into the car, but no fire had been set. Oddity. There were no signs of a struggle in the car, even though Kathy was a career military officer and could defend herself. This led investigators to suspect a power factor. The killer may have posed as an officer. 2. David Knobling and Robin Edwards, September 1987. Location. David's pickup truck was found abandoned in a parking lot near the James River Bridge. The bodies were discovered a few days later on the riverbank. Details. Both had been shot in the back of the head. Oddity. The victims' wallets were still there, but Robin's shoes were found in the car, while her body was discovered barefoot on the beach. This indicated that they were forced out of the car and walked some distance at gunpoint. 3. Cassandra Haley and Keith Call, April 1988. Location. Keith's car, a Toyota Celica, was found at an overlook on Colonial Parkway. Details. This is the most baffling case, as the bodies were never found. The victims' clothes were found inside the car, neatly folded or strewn about as if they were about to change. Oddity: the car keys were on the dashboard. Again, no signs of a struggle or blood. 4. Anita Hales and Daniel Lauer, September 1989. Location: the car was found abandoned at a rest stop on I-64 near the Parkway. The bodies were found a month later in a wooded area. Details: due to the advanced state of decomposition of the bodies, the exact cause of death was difficult to determine, but there were stab wounds on the clothing. Oddity: the driver's licenses of both victims were on the dashboard. This became the killer's signature, a symbol that he was checking the documents. Analysis of the killer's profile. Investigative agencies, including the FBI, have compiled a rough profile of the perpetrator. 1. Connection to the law. The killer was well acquainted with the patrol patterns of Colonial Parkway. He likely had a car with flashing lights or wore a uniform that wouldn't arouse suspicion in young people. 2. Hunter. He chose dead-end or secluded areas, lovers' lanes, where couples would retreat to their cars. 3. Cool. The fact that he spent time arranging documents or driving cars suggests a high level of self-confidence. 2024 breakthrough: Alan Wade Wilmer Sr. For a long time, the case was considered a cold case. However, in January 2024, the Virginia police and the FBI made an official statement. Thanks to genetic gene-edited, why wasn't he caught sooner? Alan Wilmer was invisible to the system. No criminal record. He had no major arrests, so his DNA was never entered into the CODIS, Federal Criminal Database. Lifestyle: he was a hunter, fisherman, and truck driver. He frequently changed cars, owned a boat named Dennas, and was skilled in the use of firearms. Appearance: he sported a thick beard and often looked like a typical woodsman of the time, allowing him to blend into the landscape. New mystery: other victims. While Wilmer's DNA definitely links him to the second case, 1987, a legal complication has arisen. 1. 1986 case, first. At the murder scenes of Kathy Thomas and Rebecca Dowski, DNA evidence was severely damaged or missing. There is no direct evidence against Wilmer yet. 2. 1988 case, disappeared. No bodies found, no evidence. 3. Teresa Speciale, 1988. This murder occurred in the same area but was not officially part of the Parkway series. However, Wilmer's DNA was found there too. This proves he was a serial killer, operating much more widely than previously thought. What does this mean for history? Wilmer's death in 2017 means he will never face justice. However, for the families of the victims, it was a long-awaited answer. Virginia police are now reviewing dozens of cold cases of women's disappearances from the 1980s and 1990s, checking to see if Wilmer was involved. To connect Alan Wade Wilmer Sr. to the remaining cases, where DNA was either lost or damaged, the FBI and Virginia State Police asked the public to identify specific vehicles he owned in the 1980s. Investigators believe his vehicles allowed him to remain undetected and quickly escape crime scenes. 1. His boat. Dennas. Wilmer was an avid commercial fisherman and hunter. Description: it was a small commercial fishing boat, approximately 20 feet, 6 meters long. Name: the name Dennas was written on the side. Significance: the boat was often moored in the area of the York and James Rivers, precisely where bodies or abandoned cars of victims were found. Wilmer may have used the waterways to spy on couples on the shore or to dispose of evidence. 2. His cars. Killer wheels. Between 1986 and 1990, Wilmer drove several vehicles that witnesses may have seen on Colonial Parkway. 1. Blue Dodge Ram pickup truck, 1980s. This was his primary transportation. The truck had a distinctive bull bar on the front and was often loaded with fishing tackle or hunting equipment. Witnesses in the Nobling and Edwards case, 1987, mentioned a similar dark pickup truck parked next to the victim's car. 2. Small, light-colored sedan. He later owned a nondescript passenger car, which allowed him to blend in with vacation traffic. How Wilmer's DNA changed everything. In 2023 to 2024, when experts reanalyzed the evidence using genetic genealogy, they uploaded the DNA found on Teresa's body into a database. The result was shocking. The DNA of Teresa Spicciali's killer was a perfect match to the killer of David Nobling and Robin Edwards, the 1987 Parkway victims. This proved two things. The killer wasn't limited to couples. If he saw a lone woman in a vulnerable position, for example with a broken-down car, he would strike. He operated across a vast area around the Chesapeake Bay, using his knowledge of the area as a hunter and fisherman. A terrifying detail: help on the road. Investigators now suspect that Wilmer used classic Good Samaritan tactics. He saw a parked car or a damsel in distress. He pulled up in his blue Dodge Ram pickup truck. He offered help, or, using his authority as a mature, confident man, he was 33, lured the victim into his car or into the woods. Connection to the Dennas boat. The location where Teresa's car and her body were found is close to the shoreline, where Wilmer often fished for oysters and fish. For him, these were home spots where he knew every tree and every hidden turnoff. Summary for history. It was the Teresa Spicciali case that revealed Alan Wilmer to be far more dangerous than investigators had suspected 30 years earlier. He wasn't just the Parkway killer, he was an active serial killer who had been hunting for years. Virginia police are currently investigating at least 3 more unsolved murders of women, which occurred between 1982 and 1995 in the same area. They are searching for matches using his DNA or descriptions of his boat and truck. The victims' families reacted to the news that Alan Wade Wilmer Sr. was the man who shattered their lives with a mixture of profound relief, rage, and painful disappointment. Imagine, for decades, parents and siblings lived in ignorance, constantly wondering, who was it? Why them? Where is he now? And now, when the truth finally came out, it brought with it very specific emotions. Justice without a finality. The family's primary emotion was devastation at the impossibility of a trial. The families hoped to see the criminal in court. They wanted to look him in the eye, ask questions, hear a confession, and see him receive a life sentence or the death penalty. The fact that Wilmer died in 2017, a free man, was a second blow. They felt the killer slipped away after living his life, while the lives of their loved ones were cut short in their prime. Recognition of the importance of detectives' work. Despite their grief, the families expressed immense gratitude to the investigators. The relatives of David Nobling and Robin Edwards, whose cases were officially closed thanks to DNA evidence, emphasized in their press statements, "Finally, we know." This knowledge, though bitter, ended decades of paranoia, when every car on the road or every suspicious man could be considered a potential killer of their children. They thanked the FBI and the Virginia police for not giving up. For many families, it was important to realize that their loved ones had not been forgotten and that the cold case had not been shelved. A painful epiphany. Many were shocked by Wilmer's lifestyle. Families learned that he was an ordinary person, a neighbor, a fisherman, a hunter. This shattered the myth that villains are necessarily monsters with obvious quirks. This realization brought a new sense of vulnerability. He walked among us, he greeted people, he lived an ordinary life while we suffered. A call to continue the search. This news resonated most keenly with the families of the victims whose bodies were never found, in particular the loved ones of Cassandra Haley and Keith Call. For them, confirming Wilmer's identity is not closure, but new hope. Now that they know who did it, the families hope that police will be able to more effectively comb the areas where Wilmer fished and hunted, hoping to find remains and finally give their children a proper burial. Family Summary. In an interview after an FBI press conference in 2024, one relative said something like this: "This doesn't give us the closure that a verdict gives. He never had a chance to repent. But it gives us the truth. And the truth is better than 40 years of absolute silence." This case will forever remain a symbol of how technology is changing the rules of the game in forensic science. It reminds us that even if a criminal has gone to the grave, the digital trace, DNA, can catch up with him and restore historical justice.
Подписывайтесь и жмите на колокольчик, чтобы не пропустить новые видео.